and this is part 2. And as I left off, for a long time I had lived under the assumption that virtually everybody was a Christian. Now, that may seem contradictory because I mentioned earlier that I went online and defended the faith and all that, so I knew that there were people who were not Christians, but, it kind of seemed to me that those people were just, kind of far off in a distant place. Surely nobody I knew was an atheist, or nobody I knew was anything else. In fact, if I met you and talked to you and you were a nice, decent person, I would have assumed that you were a Christian, because, to me, if you were a nice, decent person, you simply had to be a Christian. And by the time I was about 24 and 25, I'm 26 now, but when I was 24, I finally got to the point where, I could say, okay, I've rejected virtually all the beliefs that I once held. I mean, there's really no way I can logically call myself a Christian anymore, because I don't believe in... I disbelieve in virtually all of the things that I once held to be true. And now I'd kind of like to talk about some of my thoughts about this whole process, and some of my observations from watching other videos from people here on YouTube about this topic, and about reading some things that other people have posted on the internet, because I've frequented some other message boards where people talk about religion, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I've read a lot of comments from people who have a lot of stuff to say about this. Now, a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people think that anyone who leaves the Christian faith was never a Christian to begin with. And, I could talk about that quite a bit, but I'm not going to, because I think a lot of people already have. But one attitude that has really jumped out at me is that anyone who was once a Christian and who has left the Christian faith are just doing it because they want to rebel against their parents. They're just being rebels. I've heard that mentioned quite a few times, and I know it's not true. I mean, I'm not rebelling. In fact, I really don't see how I could rebel, because, as I said earlier, most of my family isn't religious, and in fact, when I really look at my parents, they're not that religious either. I mean, my mom goes to church as often as she can, and she prays regularly, but she doesn't talk about it that much. And my dad sometimes goes to church with her. I mean, for a long time he did go to church regularly, but he tapered off after a while, and I don't think he goes hardly at all now. So, I mean, I don't really think there's really much there for me to rebel against. And besides, I'd be curious about the people who think that everyone like me and you who have left the faith are rebelling. I'd be curious to hear what they think about people who were raised in non-Christian homes who accepted Christianity in adulthood. I wonder if they think they're rebelling too. Probably not. They probably think that's different. And I should probably also talk about my beliefs about, God and spirituality in general, because I really haven't talked about that yet in either one of these videos. I have, at a few points, called myself an atheist, but overall I don't think that's the best way to describe me, because I'm actually still a bit out to lunch about whether or not there is a God. I no longer believe in a God that answers people's prayers and who, acts as a personal God to everybody here on earth, and who, keeps a close watch over everybody, and who is watching every move you make every day and keeps a tally of everything that you do. I don't believe in a God like that anymore. Excuse me. However, what about a deistic God? I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and I actually think that a deistic God is somewhat likely. I have heard some fairly strong arguments in favor of such a God, and I'm not as ready to dismiss the possibility of a deistic God. I'm not saying that one exists. I'm just saying I think it's somewhat likely, and I'm willing to hold out hope for the possibility that a God of that nature might be out there somewhere. And just to get everything out in the open, I have done a lot of research about the theory of evolution, and I now accept it as fact, just as I accept all the other scientific theories like electromagnetism, germ theory, atomic theory, and all those other scientific theories. Let me see, I'm trying to remember if there was anything else I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. And as you've probably noticed throughout this two-part video, I have gone through quite a big change in my beliefs. I was once fundamentalist Christian, biblical literalist, and creationist and all that, and now I guess you'd maybe call me an agnostic who has deistic tendencies, and I, of course, accept science for what it is. And I would like to say that this whole deconversion of mine has really given me a lot of respect for the people who make videos about theory of evolution and who make videos, encouraging people to think critically about religion and think critically about everything in life, because that is what really helped open my eyes. I have tremendous respect for people like Thunderfoot and Extant Dodo and other such people here on YouTube who make videos about evolution, because I gotta say, it was people like them who, finally made me admit that I had been wrong when I rejected evolution in favor of biblical creation. So, if any of you guys are watching this video, kudos to you. Just so you know, what you do is not totally ineffective. There are some people who do finally let that stuff sink in. And I think that's all I have to say, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, King Heathen, and I like your videos, and I hope all is well with you. Good night.